Hello, 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 everyone. Mike Arnold here, co-founder, Path Trading Partners, along with Bob Iacchino. How is everyone doing on this fine Sunday? Hold on one second. We fix something over here. What is going on? Again, how is everyone doing? Let me just change something. Sorry, I just noticed something. There we go. Okay, fixed. All right. Happy Sunday, Davey. Good evening, Anissa. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Hope everything is well overseas. Afternoon, George. Happy Sunday, Chris, and everybody else hiding behind the scenes. By the way, I did put up the news weekly stock sector overview with my thoughts on that. So we'll get started in a second. By the way, it's probably a little lighter audience since it is summertime in on Sunday afternoon. And hopefully, people, if you can't catch it live, will watch it on replay to do their market prep. But I see some of the regulars here, or if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, ring the bell, and hit that like button. Longer term subscribers, please come back after this over. At least leave a brief comment and like the videos to get wider distribution. All right. Hey, AP's World, you're becoming a regular also. I appreciate this dedication. Very quiet week. Wow, 92 degrees in the San Francisco Bay Area? Well, that's a little hot for the San Francisco Bay Area. It's been cold and rainy here all weekend. We're supposed to heat up this week again, though. Hey, Dan Jet. So this is a very quiet week at the beginning. Tomorrow, Monday, housing market index. Well, that's not going to affect the markets that much. We're going to see if it contracts. Then you got building permits and housing starts. So it's front loaded with housing stuff. Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday's mortgage stuff. It'll be interesting. The mortgage rate should come down from the previous. Existing home sales, crude on Wednesday. But then we get into jobless claims and Philadelphia Fed manufacturing to see if that's still in contraction. But really important is the Philly Fed employment and prices paid and business conditions, those subcomponents. And then the Consumer Board leading index that's expected a little better last time, but still negative. So that will be interesting. So Thursday, also you have the ECB meeting on Thursday. Do not forget that. So Thursday starts getting more interesting, and Friday you have the flash PMIs in the morning. So everything is backloaded this week. Remember, it's hard to forget, everything was green on the rallies on Friday. Still favoring that 75 basis point. That 100 basis point is still dropping down rapidly based off the Fed speak and still in negative gamma. The earnings, we had banks kicking off on Thursday and Friday. Now remember, before the open, you have BOA and Goldman Sachs and Schwab tomorrow, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Again, I'm not bullish on financials. We had some insane stuff with financials. I mean, we had B of A with a front run buy on Friday, massive front run pattern, and the only thing that's beat so far in banks was Citigroup. So I'm pretty much steering clear of banks unless there's gap fill plays. After the close, IBM chart looks absolutely like trash. So there's nothing going on for me with that. And then we start getting to more important things like Netflix, Tesla, Snap, even Snap crap. What else do we have? But really, the week after, so not this week, but the next week, really is when we pick up with a lot of tech earnings. But there's some interesting stuff like Tuesday, Johnson and Johnson. What else do we have? If anybody trades with IB, I have an IB account. Interactive Brokers. So there could be some stuff, but not a lot of stuff that will really rock the market unless you have like a mega cap like Tesla that really misses on earnings, and that could provide some downward pressure. Or if they beat, I don't know, if they beat, you could see some upward pressure. But other than that, so my main focus will be earnings. And then, as I said in the sector overview, we have cycles at the bottom and turning up. Is this a guarantee? No, but on the NASDAQ, you also have the double bottom triggered, S&P cycles turning up and on the weekly basis at the top and not yet rolling over. So I said in the sector overview, and I'm just going to recap that here, but please do go watch it. I think we have about 1 to 1.5 weeks of potential upside price action. Now, can anything still happen? Yes. But the favorite, I mean, we have pretty high statistical odds, especially even with the S&P. We got all these things closing above that 62.5 of this little downward slope. So statistically, between the double bottoms, between cycles turning up, and with all these key closes above the 62.5, we have some very decent probabilities for some continuing higher price action. So hold on, my do not disturb kicked off. Give me 1 second. There we go. I don't want things popping up in the middle of this live stream. So I am focused on upwards price action, potentially through the Fed meeting. That's not this Wednesday, the following Wednesday. So that's a week and a half. And then I'll start watching. Keep an eye on your weekly cycles. And we could easily come into the weekly rotation zone and then roll over. So that's what I'm going to be watching for a longer term, but short term I'm watching. And that doesn't mean every day has to be up, but I'm watching for a general upwards bias. Twitter and Tesla in same week. Yes, and remember also I didn't mention that the lawsuit between Twitter and Tesla, the first hearing is on Tuesday, I believe. So that could have some interesting stuff with price action too, and Tesla's sort of sitting in no man's land. But overall, I'm watching for continued. My next target in the S&P to the upside, 38.96, 39.22, and then above that, there's these highs back at the end of June with the declining 50-period exponential. So 39.53. So then those aren't necessary for tomorrow unless we had another rip your face off rally. Support coming in, we got the first cross of the rotation zone now. So really my key support, let me take this down. My key support area, my major support's coming in about 38.28 with the rising rotation zone. My minor support, if we do pull back overnight, 38.47 to 38.50, and then the bigger pullback is at 38.28. So those are my two pullback levels, but I'm really watching, even with a pullback, for a rotation back up tomorrow. Now, keep in mind, 4-hour cycles are at the top, so we could get a little rotation down, a nice little pullback move before the next push higher. All right, but overall, going to be focused on the next push higher. Earnings in Q3 for outlook, is that a question, Davey? Have to take a chance on 70% probability, but the question is where? Overall, if you want the easy plays, it'd be the spiders or I like the futures, of course, but it could be the spiders or the Qs. The Qs, we'll take a look at those. Just remind me. And I went through some individual stuff. If you want some stuff, remind me after I get through the overview, things I'm focusing on. I will. And I also listed some areas I'm focusing on in the sector overview. NASDAQ, remember, triggered this double. Also closed above the 62.5. So NASDAQ just off this target, so 12,030, that's your stop raise. Then 12,114, 113 right in here with the 87.5. Remember, we closed above the 62.5, so that's the next major target area, not only for a double, but for the 87.5 statistical play, and then to the highs. Cycles on the 4-hour at the top. Overbought at the top, so wouldn't be surprised for a pullback move before the next push higher, but that pullback move could happen overnight. Then my next major target area is that 50 with the most recent highs. So those are my upside targets right now. The pullback targets, major is about 11,850, minor right around 11,960 to 11,965, And then if we drop below there, I'd be keying off of some of these key closes with the 1 hour rotation zone about 11,900. I'm looking for earnings in Q3. Oh, so you're looking for earnings and guidance. Yes. Besides the earnings, there will be guidance. And also remember, for companies that have a strong overseas presence, U.S. companies that have strong overseas presence, the dollar has been very, very strong. Okay, I'm going to jump to that real quick. The dollar, you can look at this on the weekly chart. So this puts a damper on overseas earnings. So do keep that in mind. So we could see some interesting misses with companies that have more overseas exposure and have not hedged correctly. Dow also the close above the 62.5. My minor target 31,425. My major target area 31,650 to about 31,728. My pullback area, minor is about 3126 to 31,000, and then more significance would be this little support resistance period support shelf with the 4 hour rotation zone somewhere right around 30,870. Russell closing right at that harmonic. Russell, an interesting pairs trade actually coming up, because smaller caps could start underperforming in this environment. So an interesting pair trade could be long the S&P, short the Russell, or long the NASDAQ, short the Russell. That's an interesting pairs trade to consider. But they could both go up, but I think the S&P might. We had a little outperformance on the Russell on Friday. Going into earnings season, I think the S&P and or NASDAQ will probably outperform the Russell. So that's something I will be watching for. Pullback areas on the Russell. Minor is coming in now about 1734 to about 1733. Major is back at 1725. We got the DAX. The DAX, we have a potential double bottom still in play. We got the close above the 62.5. So my minor levels going into tomorrow, 12,930. Then I'm watching the daily rotation zone about 12,981. But we close above 13,000 and 13,005 to be exact. Then we have this double kicking in. So then that will be more upside targets. Support on the DAX. Minor is coming in about 12,783 to 12,777. Then I'll start watching the first cross the rotation zone about 12,739. Remember, also, we're going to see if the Nord Stream 1 pipeline gets turned back on after the supposed maintenance this week. If that does not get turned back on, things could get interesting. All right, that's where I need Christoph's take. Crude. We had the double bottom trigger, or I'm sorry, the head and shoulders trigger. Sawing out at this harmonic, but a move above 98.79. Minor, I'm targeting about 99.71, but majors the return to 100. I'm going to bump down this target area for raising the stop from 128 to 100. When a target's just beyond a round number like that, I always make my stop. Well, I can't say always. The majority of the time, because I might have missed it occasionally, but 99 point something percent of the time is raise the stop right before that round number. All right, key support coming back at about 96.65. We did break below that 94.77, but we do potentially have a bottoming play. Now cycles at the top on the 4 hour, but at the bottom and trying to turn up on the daily, and this is the first reaction against the rotation zone. So even if we get a pullback and then another rotation back up, the head and shoulders pattern takes us into the daily rotation zone. Natural gas, natty gas, triggering also the head and shoulders. So targets for that, 739, 774, 811. So do keep that in mind. Pullback levels I'm watching are about 665, and then unless we break below about 640, that'd be minorly concerning, but major is 614. I think I covered it in the June 21st. This is where I need Patrick. I need Patrick. Patrick told me, I think it was in the June 21st, but this is a stochastic RSI. All right. And the exact settings are there. I list them for everybody. So go check that. Somebody asked that same thing. I should really write this down. I think it was the June 21st video. Well, if you see Patrick in the chat at some point and it's not that video, ask tomorrow when he's in the chat and he will cover it. Or if Patrick, you're watching this on recording, can you list it again in the chat, in the comments after this? And Pavneet, I hope I said that right, Pavneet. Correct me if I did not. Again, I'm horrible with names. Check back at some point, either later tonight or tomorrow morning, if Patrick puts that in the comments for this one. Let's see. Gold. I talked about this. I'm starting to watch, not necessarily in the next couple days. I'm starting to watch after the next potential rollover play for a major long-term bottom in gold. We're coming back against some critical support. We formed some Elliott wave breakdown patterns. Going to watch for a reversal pattern coming up shortly. So do keep that in mind. That's where I'm also going to watch the gold index miners and everything, but not yet. Not yet. Silver also watching for a bottoming play in here against some key harmonics, but anything still would be a short-term bounce play until we get that longer-term signals. Notes, loving the notes still for a longer-term potential bullish setup. Short-term, I have to start getting some momentum or a key close above 118.30. Then I start playing for 119.23 and then for the most recent high area, which then could trigger the inverse head and shoulders. That would be a gift play for that. Makes it a lot easier to position trade this for a while. Even if we get, remember, it can take a while to form a shoulder because this could be a major weekly setup. So that's my short-term area. If we trade down, I get hands off if we start getting below 117.18, watching for a bigger pullback and a deeper right-hand shoulder before the next turn-up move. We already covered the dollar index, but I'm watching for a continued pullback play, then a bounce, then a more substantial rollover play. Okay, so we could get this pullback even into the daily rotation zone. So minor area is about 107.41, but the major area I'm watching is about 106.70 to 107. Then I'll be watching for a potential bounce play. So pullback, bounce, and then a bigger top forming. So, but that's still a ways away. Short term is the little bounce play first. Euro. Start getting more bullish on a close back above 101.20. With cycles definitely turning up on that daily, and then we'll target some of these other harmonics, mainly 102, roughly. That's the 37.5% harmonic. And see how far off we are from the weekly rotation zone. Then I'd be watching for another pullback play and then a longer term bottom being put in the euro. Bitcoin. By the way, this doubles off the table now. I should have pulled that on Friday. I mismeasured it, but that's off the table. So I'm just watching for this horizontal channel play. But cycles getting at the top on the weekly, not yet on the top on the daily. So I'm watching for another rollover play. And then eventually once weekly cycles roll for another major breakdown. Where else do we sit? Tesla, I'll cover this tomorrow morning based off this, but again, key support. We're going into earnings on Wednesday. We start getting below 686. We got stuff hinging with the Twitter case, though, with whether they're going to expedite the trial. So this is turning into an even bigger news stock, and then earnings on Wednesday. Unless I get a solid pattern, everything's just intraday playing on that. Now, let's see. Ted, you asked SPYQQQ individual names. Spiders closing above the 62.5, so this is definitely a play. Your targets, minor 387, but major, and this isn't just for tomorrow. These are positioning. So if you were positioning an options trade or something else, next major one, because we closed above the 62.5, we should target the 87.5 right around 390.30 area, 390.40. So between 390.40 and 393 would be a potential area that if I was setting up option plays where I'd be watching for upward strikes. Let's say I wanted to do a bull call spread, that would be the upper strike area, and then it would be to the 53.94. But I'd really be watching in this area. The only way I start getting concerned in the short term is if we start breaking back down below this 382. Then I'd be watching for 380.50, and I'd be patient then on setting up my bullish play and then the potential gap fill before the next rotation back up. But with cycles still heading up on the 4-hour on that and at the bottom on the daily, this would take a lot of downward pressure, and we'd have to have some major cracks forming the market. Then I'd have to reassess. So right now the spiders are looking as a good play. Again, can't structure your trade for you, but I can give you key levels. Qs, see here, double bottom triggered. First target virtually hit, so that was 292. 294, 296 are your next two targets. Statistically, we should easily hit 294.60. No guarantees, but that's around 70% that we should hit there. What would get me cautious? We get back below 220, 288.20, especially on a daily closing basis. And you see 4-hour cycles not yet at the top, so this could run a little bit more daily. So see the futures, when you have the futures in this, because the Qs and the spiders are only taking into account the day session. That's why I'm saying we could get a nice little pullback on the futures overnight and then start rotating back up, and wouldn't change anything with these setups on the Qs and the spiders. Now, other stuff I'm listed in the sector overview, things like the SMH, because you got the Pelosi play with her husband buying all those NVIDIA calls, and I'm trying to do a vote this week on the semiconductor 52 billion, I'll call it a infrastructure bail-in package. So I'm watching for semi plays, but you have to be real cautious with this, because if that vote gets delayed or doesn't pass, then I keep very aggressively tight stops. But what am I watching for in that? Things like NVIDIA, which has a potential double bottom. Now you start getting up tomorrow intraday above 158.65. Could be an intraday play to target 160.37. And then you get a close above that. You have your targets at the 50% from this whole sell-off move, from the June 2nd highs to the July 5th lows, coming in with the first target on the double at 168.41. The second target, which I'm really also watching with the declining 50, 172.16. Before we get another rollover play in there. You got cycles turning up on the daily. The only concerning thing is they're at the top, but not yet rolling over, but they haven't been able to sustain a higher range on this. And we are against the weekly rotation zone. So that's why I'm still saying it has to be nimble play. This is not something I just put on and walk away, because there's that news around that vote. But if that vote were to pass at least the House, you could get a continued pop higher. So you gotta go with the Pelosi play. Ugh. Can we ban them from trading stocks and their spouses, please? Like, he didn't get potential information from his wife about when a vote was going to be pushed and scheduled, so he goes buys NVIDIA. Now, AMD does not have as strong a pattern, but AMD, you see this breakdown here, 25% harmonic and rotation zone. You start getting a pop above there. It's still into a clear path move. You have a gap. You have the gap that was just filled, but you're still into a clear path move. My first play is with NVIDIA. My second play I'm watching with AMD, with a minor move up to stop at 82.55 and a next major target about 84.60. and that could spike through this, but I'd be watching where it closes because you still have this clear path, but it's not as strong a pattern with versus Nvidia. And see, the thing I'm sticking clear with, even though they're out of the earnings, TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, we've had this little ramp up. They beat earnings, but overhead, we have this major breakdown zone with the 50. And we're getting into overbought condition with cycles at the top. So that would be one I would avoid in the semiconductor space. So that's sort of how I do my analysis with potential play and looking at here's three majors that you can look at. And that's just, I'm not going to go through every semiconductor play, but that's how I rank them. So is this week to the moon? I'm not saying it's to the moon. I'm saying we got a week to potentially a week and a half of upward price pressure before the next potentially substantial rollover play. To the moon, I mean, if it comes back up to 39.50, is that to the moon? It's not to the moon for me. It's a nice little rally. It could even, theoretically, you're into a clear path move up here. If it did get above here, we got a downward sloping trend line. We have some other harmonics. So even on a stronger rally before the Fed meeting next week, 4,000, 4,026, and then the rollover play, that would be a more substantial rally. But where does that put us in the next week and a half? Week and a half? And I'm not saying every day is going to rally, but that's only a close to 4.5% rally. I mean, that's not bad. I'm just looking here, but that's not to the moon. I mean, even if we tackled the to the other side of the weekly rotation zone on the Nasdaq, it's close to a 6% rally. It's a decent rally. I think somewhat priced in, but still based off of guidance, not fully. So that's why this week, remember, this week, we have a couple key things, but the big boys like Tesla, Netflix is losing its status as that. You got more tomorrow morning with the banks, but that can be recovered easily. This is not the big week. This is not the big week. Here's where I start getting really interested. Look at next week because you got the Fed meeting here, right? Fed meeting 27th. Now you're going into that week. So not only do we have the Fed meeting, we got Google or Alphabet. I'm still always going to call it Google. Microsoft, Alphabet. You still have Visa, which is going to be a biggie because of where we stand with consumer and credit and everything else. Then you got the day after, you got Apple and Amazon and Intel. Not a biggie, but it's going to be important. Then even we got the oils kicking in at the end of the week. So this is when it starts getting real interesting in my book. Yeah, but Snap's not going to move the market that much. It could have a little effect on the Nasdaq, but the Snap's not going to move the market. Now you get things like Alphabet, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon missing. That's going to move the market. Even Tesla missing could move the S&P. We could get, if they have a miss and they get sold off with that, you could get downward pressure for a day or two. All right, so that gave some plays to watch for. That's where we sit. All right, this was a good Sunday live stream to prep us. Now we'll watch for the overnight price action and fine-tune things tomorrow. But that should give you some started area with some key levels if you want to look at structuring some trades. So that's where we sit. I'm just going to wrap this up now. Good 30-minute live stream. We'll take a look at the VIX tomorrow, but Look, the VIX sitting right at the 200. This is a key area, but if we start breaking below about 2370, below 2370 gets interesting because you're into a clear path move. And if we did rally, look at all this bottoming price action in here. I would not be surprised if we get a stronger rally over the next few days to easily tackle around back in the $20 range on the VIX before we put in a bottom and then move up. But let's just see. That's once we break below that 2070. You are welcome, Ted. Again, I hope everyone has a fantastic, if you're overseas, rest of your very short evening, and rest well. If you're in the States, have a great, fantastic rest of your day, a fabulous dinner. Hopefully you're with your family or with some loved ones, and then prep for tomorrow. I will talk to everyone bright and early, 8 a.m. Central Time. I will be here unless something really bad happens to me, but not counting on that. Bye for now.